Hi, welcome back to my channel, guys. Hello, and in lieu of today's video, of course, we're gonna crochet a tiny dino stuffed animal, a brontosaurus to be exact. This is gonna be the perfect dino plushie for all tiny dino lovers, and it's such a great product to work on if you want like a gift to give, especially since right now it's October, so Christmas is coming around. My name is Glory. Hi, and if you don't know who I am, I crochet stuffed animals for a living. But today you're gonna crochet stuffed animals with me as I teach you how to make this crochet tiny brontosaurus pattern. Now, a couple disclaimers before we move on to the materials. I do want to let you know that this pattern is not necessarily the most beginner friendly. What do I even mean by this? Well, when it comes to beginner friendly patterns, typically those are geared towards people that have made only 1 to 2 projects in their past. However, this dino, a prerequisite to making this pattern is that you should have already generally know how to read a crochet pattern, although I will have the rounds listed for every single round and I will be crocheting with every single round. It's important that you know how to read a crochet pattern pretty well. It's important that you know how to single crochet, how to decrease. I'll teach you other advanced techniques like how to do a bobble stitch and how to close up a body and work from make a seamless looking neck and head. I'll teach you all of the more advanced techniques. With that being said, however, some of these advanced techniques may be too much for a beginner who's only made 1 or 2 plushies in their past. So, if you're a beginner and I'm describing you, maybe you've only crocheted 1 to 2 plushies or projects in your past. Maybe you're not the best at reading a crochet pattern, but you try your best. Maybe you're not the best at double crocheting, but you can single crochet pretty okay. And maybe it takes you a long time to grasp crochet concepts, then skip this video. I'm coming out with a more beginner friendly pattern soon. But in the meantime, everyone else, you can stay and crochet along. I think those are all the disclaimers. I just wanted to make sure that coming into this video, I want you to know that it isn't going to be super beginner friendly. I don't want to upset you and raise your expectations too high. So let's talk about the materials and then grab your hook and your yarn and we will get started soon. All right, guys, time to begin. First, grab your hook and grab your yarn. We're gonna start first by crocheting the tail, and then we're gonna continue from the tail and work on the body, connect the tail to the body, crochet the body, and then crochet the neck and head seamlessly. However, the tail is gonna be the first piece that you crochet on its own. So, start by making a magic ring or chaining 2. I like to do the chain 2 method, as you can see. And if you need a quick little tutorial on the chain 2 method, I'll give you one real quick. Simply chain 2, and in that second chain away from your hook, you're going to single crochet. And then in that same stitch, you're going to do that 3 more times for a total of 4 stitches. Now, if you want to do the magic ring method, you can go ahead and do the same thing. Just make sure that you have 4 single crochets within your magic ring. And that's great. So now, round 1. We're going to single crochet in the first stitch and then increase twice in the next stitch. So I'm going to go into that first stitch and I'm going to single crochet, and in the next stitch I'm going to increase. That third stitch I'm going to single crochet, and in that fourth stitch I am going to increase. You should have 6 stitches in total. Now don't forget to flip your tail inside out so that you're able to see your stitches. I'm going to start using a stitch marker now. I wasn't before because there's so little stitches that I didn't want it to crowd what I was doing. please use your stitch marker for this pattern. It's very important. Round 3, we're going to single crochet increase just like we did for round 2, 3 times instead of twice like we did previously. So go ahead and single crochet in that first stitch. I'm gonna add my stitch marker there. And then increase in that next stitch. And do the same thing 3 times in total. Your last stitch should be an increase, and you should have 9 stitches in total. Good job. I have moved the camera a little bit closer so that you could see my stitches clearly. Now, we're on round 4. We're going to single crochet in each stitch. So go ahead and place your hook into that first stitch and single crochet into it. I'm going to place my stitch marker right here. And you're just going to do that for every single stitch. And again, you should have 9 stitches in total. All right, guess what? You just finished the tail. Fasten off, and you're gonna save it for later. By fastening off, I mean cut that end of the stitch and then just simply pull your hook up. It should lock that stitch in place. So, because of that, now you're good to go. Good job. You completed the tail. Should look like a little ice cream cone of sorts. I'm gonna set it aside, and we're gonna come back to it later for when we crochet the body. Speaking of body, let's begin the body right now. With the same color of yarn, we're going to do a magic ring or the chain 2 method, and we're going to single crochet 8 stitches into that magic ring or our chain 2. So go ahead and chain 2 or make the magic ring. And then that second chain away from hook, again, you are going to stick your hook inside of it and make a single chain. And then you're going to do that 7 more times. Oop. And if I'm moving my hands in places that are other than the work, don't mind me. I'm just referring to my pattern because guess what? I don't remember it word by word, but that's okay because I wrote everything down. Speaking of wrote everything down, I wrote down that you should have 8 stitches in total, and we do. Good job. Round 2, you're going to increase in each stitch 8 times. Well, you're going to increase in each stitch for a total of 16 stitches. Also, side note, I hope you guys like this new tutorial mode. Usually, if you've seen a bunch of my tutorials, you'll notice that I usually have my camera at a bird's eye view so that you're seeing directly above what I'm crocheting. But I thought that this view would be better because then it's as if you're sitting right in front of me and you're able to see what the work looks like as if you were crocheting in front instead of me, if that makes sense. It's nice to see it in the direction of how you would do it at home, whereas you're not a bird, so bird's eye view isn't always the most beneficial. Anywho, round 2 is done. So now we're going to move on to round 3. We are going to increase in the first stitch and then we're going to single crochet. We're going to increase again in the next stitch, and then we're going to puff stitch. Let me explain. So first stitch, we're going to increase. And I'm going to move my stitch marker. Remember, your stitch marker should be in that first stitch of that increase. So this stitch right here. And in that next stitch, we're going to single crochet. We're going to increase again in that third stitch. And then we're going to do a puff stitch or a bobble stitch in that next stitch. What does that even look like? Let me do a quick tutorial. Wrap your yarn around your hook or yarn over, and then insert your hook into that next stitch, as we were mentioning earlier. Yarn over again and draw that yarn through the loop, through the hook to make a loop. Yarn over one more time and then draw through only these two, not all three. That's important. We're going to do that 4 more times. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, loop, and draw through 2. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, make a loop, yarn over, draw through 2 loops. Yarn over, and I think you understand the point at this point. So I'm going to stop that real quick. But the point is that you should have 6 loops in total. And it should look like you have like 5 half double crochets or double crochets instead. So now the final step is just to yarn over and then draw through all 6 loops. Congratulations, you have a bobble. But not only do you have a bobble, you have the first leg to your 4-legged dino friend. So now we're going to repeat that whole process 3 more times because we do need 3 more legs, but we want them to be equally spaced out. So increase in that next stitch, then single crochet, then increase in that next stitch, and then bobble stitch. Now I'm going to make this bobble stitch a little quicker, so feel free to go back towards the video when I did the little tutorial a couple of seconds ago. I don't mind. But I wanted to do it quickly because I do want to make one thing clear. After doing the bobble stitch, notice how it's super easy. It's not as easy for you to see the next stitch. As you can see, it's actually kind of hidden. It's right there. However, the bobble stitch kind of hides it. So you may think that it's supposed to go into the next stitch. You may think that you should go into this stitch next. That is not correct. Make sure that you're noting that the stitch that you're supposed to go into next may be hidden behind the bobble stitch, because some people make that mistake and then their stitch count is very off. They only end up with like 3 legs and they're wondering why, because they think, well, I didn't skip a stitch. You might have. You just might have. It happens a lot. I just wanted to give you a note so that you wouldn't make the same mistake. And your last stitch should be a bobble stitch. And if you're not able to see if you have which stitch is next, before you do, well, actually, let me undo this real quick so it's more clear. So let's say I'm about to do a bobble stitch in this stitch, right? Before I do that stitch, try placing a safety marker or a pin in the next stitch, the stitch after, so that after you do the bobble stitch in the next stitch, in this one, you're easily able to tell, okay, the next stitch is the one with the safety pin. So don't go into any other stitches besides the safety pin. That way you know whether you're just being paranoid or whether you actually did miss a stitch. Sorry about that. And if yours looks a little flat, try just going towards the back and just sticking your hand in it a little bit. It helps to puffen it up and then tightening up your needle a little bit. All right, that is it. That was probably the most tedious part, but it's really not that bad. Okay, the next step, we're gonna align the tail to the body. So this is an important round, round 5. First, we are going to, actually I lied. We're on round 4, sorry. We're simply going to single crochet in each stitch for a total of 24 stitches. So let me put my stitch marker on. And we're going to single crochet in each stitch. I'm actually going to speed this up a little bit so that we can quickly move on to the more important part, which is just crocheting the tail to the body. And done. 24 stitches in total. Now, round 5, we are going to attach the tail to the body. So let's start off by single crocheting 2. 1, 2, oops, let me move my stitch marker. 2. And now we are going to align the tail to the body. And you see these next 3 stitches right here? 1, 2, 3. Keep those stitches in mind because those are the stitches that we're going to use a lot. Bring out your tail. We're going to align the tail to the body like so. Now, the first thing that you need to do is locate your tail, right? This is a stitch that we use to fasten off in. Then count 1, 2, 3 stitches after this stitch. These 3 stitches are going to be the stitches that we use to connect the tail to the body. So we are going to align it like this, which means that we need to stick our hook first into the 1, 2, 3rd stitch, but don't stick it in like this. This is going to be you won't be able to connect it if you do it like that. Instead, you gotta turn it around like this. Then count 1, 2, 3, and stick your hook through your needle like that. So remember to stick your hook from the inside of the piece through the outside, instead of from the outside of the piece to the inside like we normally crochet. I know it's a little weird, but you're just gonna have to bear with me, okay? Now that we have that, we're gonna keep it on our hook. Go to the next stitch of your body and you're gonna, at the same time, stick your hook into that stitch. Notice how the tail has aligned itself really well with the body. That is exactly what we want. Now, we're gonna single crochet these 2 stitches together. But if you're unaware of what that even looks like, just yarn over, draw through both of those stitches. Good job. Yarn over again, and then draw through both of those loops on your hook. Congrats. It wasn't that hard, right? We're gonna do that 2 more times. Stick your hook from the inside of the tail to the outside of the tail in that next stitch. And then stick your hook into the next stitch of the body. Yarn over, pull through both of those stitches, and then yarn over and draw through both of the loops on your hook. One more time. Stick your tail through that last stitch, and then stick your tail through that next stitch of the body, and single crochet the body and the tail together. Congratulations, you have just seamlessly connected the tail to the body. Good job. Now, that's just part 1. For round 5, we're going to keep going, and we're just going to single crochet 7 in the next 7 stitches. So Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we're going to do 8, 9. Then we're going to increase, and then we're going to single crochet to the end of the round. You should have 25 stitches in total that we've crocheted. And I also forgot to mention, but if you want to look at the pattern as we're working through this, I have the pattern free in my tutorial link in the description below. Okay, with that out of the way, let's go on to round 6. Round 6 is pretty simple as well. We're going to single crochet in each stitch. However, of course, we did connect the tail to the body in the previous round, so it's going to come with a twist. Let's start by single crocheting in that first stitch. And let me add my stitch marker. And then the next stitch. Now here's where the tricky part comes. We use 3 stitches, these 3 in specific, to connect the tail to the body. But for this round, we are not going to use these stitches ever again. Instead of sticking your hook into that 3rd stitch and crocheting it like that, I don't want to see you do that. Instead, because if you do that, you're going to leave the tail hanging and there's just going to be a hole. That is not the proper way. Instead, you're going to stick your hook into the remaining stitches of the tail. So what does that even look like? Stick your hook from the outside of the tail on the inside, just like we normally crochet. And then yarn over and single crochet it as normal. See, now it makes more sense that we can crochet around the head and the tail like so. So I'm going to single crochet into this stitch. And all these stitches of the tail that are left. You should have 6 stitches left because remember the tail had 9 stitches left in total, but we used 3 to connect the tail to the body and we're not using those 3, so therefore we only have 6 stitches left. There. Then you're going to continue to crochet in the next stitch of the body only. At this point, congratulations, guess what you just did? You just seamlessly connected the tail to the body. This is what it should look like so far. And you're just going to keep crocheting around like nobody's business. And I'm actually going to speed this up a little bit. So bear with me as I quickly crochet through round 6. Because now the hard part's out of the way. Well, part 1 anyway. All right, round 6 is complete. So round 7, we're going to single crochet in that next stitch. And round 7, we're going to really do a little bit of shaping. So let me show you what that even looks like. Adding my stitch marker and I'm going to single crochet and then we're going to decrease in the next stitch. If you're not sure exactly what a decrease would look like, I typically like to do the invisible decrease. So stick your hook into that front loop of the first stitch, the front loop of the next stitch, like so, and then pretend that you're single crocheting through a normal stitch. That's the invisible decrease. It barely looks like it's there. Then you're going to single crochet 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you're going to decrease again in the next 2 stitches or in the next stitch. Then you're going to single crochet to the end of the row. You should have 26 stitches in total. And I'm actually going to speed this up a little bit because we know how to single crochet to the end of the row. That's the easiest part you're going to get from this pattern. All right, round 7 is done. Round 8 is actually pretty similar. So we're going to decrease in the next stitch. The first thing we do is going to decrease. And that's going to be the first stitch of the round. So I'm going to place my stitch marker in that decrease stitch. Then we're going to single crochet 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to decrease again. It's very similar to round 7, except we're just doing a little more shaping. And then you're going to single crochet to the end of the round. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit. Now, why are we doing decreases in such weird places? It's because I want the body to be shrunken around the area where the tail is, so that when we're closing up the body and crocheting the neck, which you'll see later, it will look nice and seamless. Let's go on to round 9. Round 9 is probably the easiest round of the pattern. You're simply going to single crochet in each stitch. Yep, that's it. So because of that, I am going to speed up pretty quickly, but feel free to take your time as you're crocheting this through. So let me just quickly go through, and let me grab some more yarn too. Nice. Guys, look at how our dino's looking like so far. It looks so good. It looks so good. Okay, now we're going to move on to round 10. This is where a little bit of those advanced techniques that I was telling you about come into play. Also, do not mind that my nails are literally gone. Hope they just came off. Anyway, let's see. Round 10. We're going to single crochet 1, 2, 3 stitches. I'm going to place my stitch marker here. Oops. Now, that's about it. We're going to slip stitch the next 2 stitches closed. What does that even look like? Well, simply put, you're going to pretty much pretend you're doing a decrease, but you're slip stitching instead and you're doing less steps. So I like to do mine in the front loops. It makes it look very nice, and I'm going to write that in the description as well. So place your hook into the next front loop and then in the front loop of the next stitch. Yarn over and draw through both of those stitches. If you do it through both loops, it's going to look a little bit clunky, but it doesn't change it too much. Then you're going to turn your work just a little bit. Usually you would have it like this. Flip it like this instead. It'll make it easier when you're crocheting it. Now, the next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna not single crochet, but slip stitch in the next 7 pairs of stitches. What does that even mean, Glory? Well, this stitch was the one we slip stitched in, right? In fact, so that I don't make a mistake, I'm going to place a stitch marker in that stitch that we just did so that I don't mistake and go back into that stitch. So you're going to go and place your front loop into the next stitch. And then you're going to go ahead and place your front loop into the previous stitch, like so. Make sure that your yarn is under your hook like that. Or it can be over as well. It doesn't really matter, and I'll show you why in a bit. Well, the reason is because it doesn't really matter. Now, just yarn over and slip stitch through. Okay, I forgot to mention, it doesn't matter. As you can see, if my yarn's around over my hook, it's kind of hard to slip stitch because there's too much yarn around the hook. So I recommend that you have the yarn underneath your hook before you go into that loop of the previous stitch, because now it's super easy to just slip stitch through. Oops. That's one. Okay, we're gonna do it again. Front loop of the next stitch, front loop of the previous stitch, yarn over and slip stitch. And you're gonna keep doing this 5 more times. You can remove this stitch marker because we're not gonna need it anymore after this. And I'm actually gonna remove this stitch marker as well. That was just a way for me to remember not to stick my hook into that stitch. And you may have lost count on how many stitches you've done. So a nice trick is that the next round, you should have 9 stitches left in this circle. If you don't have 9 and you have like maybe 11 or 13, you may have to continue doing the slip stitching until you have enough. So right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I need to do this one more time. And then I'll be able to continue. Oh, did I say 9? I meant 8. Sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. Okay. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's how many stitches you have left. As you can see, we closed up a lot. Now, we're gonna start stuffing, and I wanna make a couple of notes, and I'm just gonna chain a bit just to lock that in place because I don't want it to get messed up as I'm stuffing. I wanna make a couple of quick notes. Number 1, when you're stuffing, make sure to overstuff this area over here. You notice that it's kind of pointy. And although we did a lot of shaping techniques to make sure that it's not super pointy, like there's still gonna sometimes be some mishaps. So in order to fix those mishaps, it's best to overstuff that area so that it can be nice and round instead of just like weird and not round. Another thing I want to mention is that as you're stuffing, you may notice that you have a hole around where the tail is. That is normal. I usually just quickly sew that closed. I'll show you what that looks like later in the assembly section, which isn't long because there's no sewing involved, really. But it's really just a quick little whip stitch and you're on your way. In my Stegosaurus pattern tutorial, I showed you how to close it off without having to crochet or whip stitch. If you want to check that out, But in the meantime, we're just gonna quickly sew. Now, like I said, I really want to just overstuff this area. Really want to close that down and make it round. You know what I mean? However, even I sometimes get some time where my stitch was really tight around that area, and so I still have a slightly pointy edge. That's okay. I typically sew that part down too, and I'll show you what I mean after I'm done stuffing a little bit. So like this is what it looks like after I'm done stuffing. I still need to close that off, but that's fine. It's a little pointy. I would agree. I think I made my stitch a little too loose, and that's okay. I'm simply just gonna sew it down, and then it'll just look nice and smooth. In fact, sometimes I go ahead, stick my hook in some random area, and just pull it down. But that's temporary. But it's a temporary fix that works. As you can see, now it's like nice and smooth. Now we can go on to crocheting the neck. What does that even look like? Let me show you. So we have 8 stitches left in our body. We're gonna go ahead and increase in this first stitch. This is actually going to be the start of our new round, round 11. So I'm going to place a stitch marker right there. And it's really important to place a stitch marker here because you might get confused later on. So I'm going to single crochet in the remaining stitches. You should have 9 stitches in total. What that looks like is that we're just crocheting around like so until we get to that last area. As you can see, and this would be the last stitch. Now, you may be wondering, Gloria, how do we get from here to crocheting the neck? Well, it's actually really simple. You're crocheting like this, right? So to simply kind of turn your work a little bit, just like what we did when we were crocheting the body, and stick your hook into that next stitch. It's easier to do when you've just turned your work so that your stitches kind of just naturally align. And bam! Again, you might have a little hole here. I do. That's fine. I just sew that down later. And when you're crocheting the little spikes, you're not really going to notice it anyway. So I don't really want you to worry too much. But that's row 11. So now row 12 to 13, we're going to single crochet in each stitch. As you can see, we already started by placing our hook and single crocheting into that first stitch. So I'm going to move my stitch marker to that stitch so that you take note of the round. And we're simply going to single crochet in each stitch, like I said previous. Now, this is not going to be too difficult. So I am going to speed through this a little bit, but feel free to crochet. A little note though, don't crochet too tight. I noticed that for some crocheters, as they're crocheting this tiny dino, the stitches tension-wise are pretty loose. But then when we get to the head and the neck, the stitches are really tight because you're crocheting in a small little circumference. So naturally you want your stitches to be a little smaller, or sometimes the opposite happens where you'll crochet the body with really tight stitches because it's like a bigger circumference. So you kind of want it to look like nice and neat and compact. But when you get to crocheting the neck, the stitches are a little loose because you're not used to crocheting in such a tiny little area. Make sure that your tension is the same throughout. With that being said, I just finished round 13. So let's move on to round 14. And you will be pleased to note that we are 75% done, not even 75, 80% done with the dino portion of this pattern. I'm so excited too. So round 14, we are going to single crochet 5. So let me single crochet in that first stitch. Place my stitch marker, and then let's do that 4 more times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good, 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 good. Now we are going to increase 3 times in the front loops only. So remember, front loops are just those loops that are facing you, the closest to you, in fact. And you're just going to increase in the next 3 stitches in the front loops only. This is actually going to be the start of the head. And then single crochet in the last stitch in both loops. You should have 12 stitches in total. And now round 15 is going to be pretty similar. Single crochet in that next stitch. And the following 4 stitches. So single crochet 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you're going to increase and then single crochet and repeat that pattern 2 more times. So increase, single crochet, increase, single crochet, then single crochet that last stitch. Good job. Round 16, you're just gonna single crochet in each stitch. Now, if you have tiny safety eyes, this is gonna be the round that you can place them on. You're gonna place them 6 stitches apart on this round. I'm just going to go over this really quickly because I think at this point of the pattern, especially, we know how to single crochet in each stitch. And done. Awesome. Round 17. We're going to kind of do what we did earlier, but backwards. So first start off by single crocheting 5. I'm gonna use my stitch marker here, and I'm just gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you're going to decrease in the next stitch and single crochet in the next stitch. You're gonna repeat that little pattern 2 more times. So decrease and then single crochet, decrease and then single crochet, and then single crochet in that last stitch. All right, good job, good job. So far, so good. Round 18 is gonna be very similar to the fact that we are decreasing. And because of that, we're gonna have less stitches. So I would recommend that you start stuffing your dino's neck right now. And soon, I would later recommend that you start stuffing the head because it's gonna be harder from here on out. All right, round 17, you're going to single crochet 5. So let me just quickly move this over. Three, 4, 5, and you're going to decrease 3 times. So 1, 2, oops, it's a little tricky sometimes, and 3, and then single crochet in that last stitch. Awesome. Guys, this is the last round. So I'm going to go ahead and stuff the head a little bit because round 19, I know, I can't believe it either, but round 19 is the last round of the body, head, neck, tail combination. So let's finish strong. All you have to do is decrease 4 times because you should have a total of, and then single crochet. I forgot to say that. 2, 3, 4, and then in the last stitch, you guessed it, single crochet. You should have 5 stitches left, and you should have a almost completed Brontosaurus. So go ahead and fasten off. You did it, guys. Look at that. Look at that. We did such a good job together. I'm so proud that you were able to conjure that up with just a couple of minutes. Well, let me not say a couple. It still took time, but you were able to do this within 30 minutes to an hour. And you actually completed this project almost anyway, from start to finish. Now, I'm going to go over the next steps of this Brontosaurus. Typically, the next steps are going to crochet the plates to the back. I also do this in my Stegosaurus pattern if you're already aware. So if you kind of already made the Stegosaurus before, then you can go ahead and crochet the Stegosaurus. Crochet the back plates just like we did in the Stegosaurus because it's the exact same way. However, for those who haven't watched my Stegosaurus tutorial, of course, I'm going to go over these. Don't worry. But first, I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to fasten off and close off the top of that head. So I'm just going to go and sew this top closed. And then I actually, before sticking it through, I like to stick it through and go to this area so that it's like an easy, quick way to sew that area closed. So I'm gonna pull through. Don't pull too tight or else you're just gonna drag, you're gonna create like a weird gap. And then I like to just go in and like so, whip stitch this closed. It's nothing crazy. There, do a little bit of editing and it almost looks like a stitch. Almost. That's that on that part. And then I think I'm really free to cut that off. And I'm going to go ahead and sew that area around the tail that was kind of bugging me and a lot of other people because it's a little annoying. I agree. So I'm going to stick my hook anywhere and then make sure that it comes out towards the area where I need to sew. And I'm just going to go ahead and whip stitch that area like that. Very, very quick. Just like how we did it on the neck just a couple of seconds ago. Looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to move on to the other side. And listen, this does not, you may be like, Glory, you said that this was no sew and we're sewing right now. I know. But I'm only sewing right now because this doesn't happen to everybody. Not everybody experiences this, but some people do. And because of that, this is what I recommend for those people who do experience that there are little holes. Some people do not experience holes, and that's great. So they don't have to do these little extra steps. I mean, you might even have holes, but you don't mind them, so you just avoid the extra steps, but some people do. And this is what you would do to fix it. So that's that on that. Look at how cute. The Brontosaurus is done, guys. We only have one step left, and that's to crochet the plates on. So we're going to crochet the plates on, not sew. Again, this is a sewless pattern generally. And the way that we're going to do it is by using a technique called surface crocheting, which you may have heard before, and it's pretty much just as it sounds like. We're crocheting on the surface of whatever you already crocheted. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start from the bottom and then work my way towards the back because we crochet from right to left. So I'm gonna start from the rightest point and then work my way towards the left. Go ahead and just stick your hook around the tip of the tail, anywhere really. It doesn't matter necessarily where, as long as you're sticking it in an area and you have your hook in between. Now I'm gonna yarn over like so, and I'm just going to draw that through. Bam. I'm gonna go ahead and chain 2, and in that same area that you stuck in, you're gonna go ahead and do a bobble stitch, just like what we did for the little legs. And then you're gonna slip stitch in that same stitch. And then you're going to literally just go into any area of the Brontosaurus and you're just going to slip stitch 3 times in like 3 stitches. Just like so. Yeah, just like that. Sometimes I do 4 depending on what I feel like. I say 3 to 4 because it gives off a nice, it makes it make sure that your little puffs are centered well. And you may be like, Gloria, I don't know. Like, I don't really know where to stick my hook. Some people like to stick their hook like this, and it ends up being like right above a stitch, kind of like that. Notice how this is a stitch and they just stuck it right through. That's one way to do it. Some people like to stick their hook vertically, and that usually ends up being through a stitch like that. It really depends on what you feel like is best. And then you're going to do the same thing that we did before. Oop, I had a thing come out. You're going to make a bobble stitch. This is going to be the second plate. And the nice thing about the surface crocheting is that it does forgive a lot of little mistakes because the stitches that we made previously when we were crocheting the actual Brontosaurus will kind of cover it. It'll act as like just a little cover. And then I'm going to go through the Brontosaurus and I'm just going to continue to single crochet. I will notice that, and I'll let you know, my little technique is that I like to go vertically through the stitches when I'm just doing my slip stitch method. My slip stitch section, because it kind of makes the slip stitches look more uniform. As you can see, these look more uniform. When I didn't do the vertical method, you can kind of see the area where the yarn and the stitches don't connect. Some people find that a little annoying. I think it's charming, but to each one's own. Am I right? And I'm going to do one right here at the part of the body where the back is. It's probably going to be the easiest for you to slip stitch into because we've already slip stitched into it previously. So it's going to look the neatest. It's going to be the straightest looking. It's going to be the most symmetrical because the stitches are already kind of there for you. So go ahead and use those to your advantage. And if you've never surface crocheted before, well, congratulations. I'm so glad that this is your first pattern that you get to surface crochet with. It's so fun, isn't it? Now go be free and do this with every other pattern that you have, because surface crocheting is literally so fun. Okay, I'm going to make one more bobble on this last area really quickly because, oof, I think you kind of get the point. Well, you can only do this so quick because it's on a surface that you're not used to crocheting, but you get what I mean. And then simply chain 1, fasten off, pull, and guys, guess what? We just finished. We just finished the Brontosaurus dino plushie. Now, I will say it does take a little bit of practice to get the surface crocheting right. And like I said, you may have some hiccups along the way where you can kind of see where that stitch and that yarn don't necessarily connect. That is fine. Don't worry over it. It's not too crazy. Just use the techniques that I showed you, and honestly, it will be a breeze. So this is what it looks like from the front. This is what it looks like from the back. It will look different. That is normal. As per bobble crocheting and bobble stitches, you can go ahead and kind of twist them over so that it kind of looks the same on each side, but it's very normal for each side to look slightly different from the other. It's all in the name of handmade. And speaking of handmade, you made that. You did this. Congratulations. Make sure to congratulate yourself. Give yourself a warm round of applause. I'm going to sew these ends in. And then I'm going to quickly show you how I like to sew my eyes on. And then we're done. If you've already made eyes or put safety eyes on, you're good to go. Enjoy your new plushie dino. But if you want to see how I sew eyes on to my dino, stay tuned. When it comes to sewing on eyes, I like to start with the color that I want the eyes to be and then go in later with some white yarn and continue from there. So we have our dino right here, and I'm going to start off by sewing on one eye. Let me bring you in closer and let's begin. Usually I like to mark where I want the eye to go, and I usually do that by like pointing out where my finger is. I want it to be like right here. So I'm going to go over on top of that stitch, and then I'm going to come over to the bottom of that stitch. And I'm just going to go over and over like that. And the trick is to not, move where your stitch is. You're going to whip stitch in that same area. And 2, wherever the yarn goes, you go with it. Now, of course, you can lead the yarn in certain ways. But if the yarn, as you can see, the yarn kind of just wants to stay on this side, it's going to be a little messy if you want to now all of a sudden move it to that side. So I just keep it on that side. You should get a little cute little round shape like that. Then I like to usually go stick my hook at the top, stick it towards the middle anyway, and then pull. And then I like to stick my hook right on the other side because, of course, what do we want? Eyelashes. Look at that. How cute. This is what it looks like from afar. Great. And now there's only one more step. So I'm usually like to go with white yarn. But if you like to stop here, then all power to you. I like to come with my white yarn and stick it from any area through the top corner of the eye. It may take a little bit because our eye is very small, but kind of like that. Then in that same area, I'm going to stick my hook again and then just stick it wherever. Usually I would stick it through the second eye, but as you can see, I have not made that eye yet. So I'm just gonna stick it wherever, pull, 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 but not all the way. I like to keep a little hook or a needle in the middle of that area where my yarn is to make sure that I don't pull too much, because if you pull too much, the eye sparkle is gonna go away. If you pull too little, it's just gonna look like a big loop. But if you pull just right, you get the cutest eye ever. Look at that, look at that, look at that. Isn't that the cutest thing? And with that being said, that's a simple eye tutorial. I'll let you go ahead and do the other side if that's what you wish. But now you should have your very own crochet tiny dino. Now, remember, you have to make this in multiple colors for multiple seasons. It's the rule. But jokes aside, thank you so much for making this dino and following this tutorial and watching it from start to finish. If you guys have any other tutorials that you want me to create or any animals that you want to see tiny and free in the future, let me know, because I am always looking for great ideas. If you want to see any other of my free tutorials or all of my 10 free patterns that I have, everything's of course in the link in the description, as well as my Patreon, my book pre-orders, and all other fun crochet items. That being said, y'all, I've taken up quite a bit of your time. This video's probably an hour long. I don't want to take any more of your time, so I'm gonna call it a day. I'm gonna crochet some more. And of course, you need to take care, rest, and make more tiny dinos or any other tiny plushies that you want to create. And I'm gonna see you guys soon. Toodles!